So I couldn't agree with Jeremy more on the fact that it's really not all about the technology. The other thing that I'm seeing is that identity and access management is such it's a broad topic. It touches so many different areas that when you're starting up any kind of project, you really need to look at what your dependencies are, and you can save yourselves a lot of time and effort sometimes if you build out an early dependency before you try to build out what you're actually doing. And one example of that is the consolidation of identity data. So in order to do a lot of these great things like single sign-on and federation and other things, you need to have access to the right sets of identity data, which often come from a variety of different sources. So you need that data integration in order to do those things. So that's one. And I think the second, my note here is, doing identity projects is so often about changing business processes. And in order to change business processes, you have to identify all your stakeholders and get their buy-in. Otherwise, the technology is not going to be enough. You have to change business processes, and you have to have your stakeholder buy-in to achieve that.
Right.